Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting being held on Tuesday, July 28th. We are calling the meeting to order at 5 p.m. Can we please call the roll?
Mrs. Assif?
Here.
Mrs. Troutman?
Here.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Here.
Mrs. Slawinski?
Here.
Mr. Bresnahan?
Here.
Mrs. Arvanites?
Here, we have 7 board members present and 0 absent. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, our first item is public comments. Do we have any public comments submitted? Seeing none, we'll skip that section of our agenda. We'll move to the approval of board meeting minutes. We have the approval of regular board meeting minutes and special board minutes from June 23rd, 2026 and July 14th, 2026. Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those meeting minutes stand as presented. And then item B is the approval of closed session minutes, June 23rd, 2026. Those meeting minutes stand as presented. Item number 4, reports and presentations. We'll start with our tentative budget, and I will turn it over to Mr. Blomquist.
Thank you very much. I am very pleased to bring to you the FY 2027 tentative budget. Again, our fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th. Usually, this presentation is brought forward to you in August. We have a slight change to our timeline this year, and really we do it for a number of reasons. First of all, we are 28 days into the fiscal year. The sooner that we can get these budget numbers into the system, the more our budget managers can ensure that they are, as they're ordering things for the upcoming year, that they are staying within their budgets. This also allows more time for you as the board and for the community to review all of the budgeted allocations and provide any feedback that you might have before we bring it to you in late September for final adoption. Because we're bringing it to you a month ahead of when you normally bring it, there are some modifications that you may see in the final budget that are normally in the tentative budget. We do expect to realize the actual state revenues that we'll get, for instance, with the general state aid or the evidence-based funding, as well as our transportation claim numbers and our tuition reimbursements. We may also have a few expenditures that get modified, but all of those will be presented at the Finance and Ops Committee meeting in early September, so all of those numbers will be updated well in advance of final adoption on September 22nd. So as I talk through this year's tentative budget, I really want to talk about investing in our students. Investing in our students means investing in our schools, investing in our staff, investing in our programs. And really it comes down to 3 E's, thinking about our students' education, our students' experiences, and really maximizing our efficiency in the process. So maximizing education, maximizing experiences, and maximizing efficiency leads to our student success. Our key priorities of this budget circle around sustainability. Sustainability of our fund balance is a key consideration. We want to make sure that our funds can sustain all of our programs, not only this year, but years into the future. We also want to ensure program sustainability. All of our educational and extracurricular opportunities, we want to maintain those so we give our students the best possible experiences in our schools. And finally, we want to ensure that our facilities are sustainable. We went through a substantial referendum. We want to maintain those schools even beyond that referendum so everything is functional and it supports all the experiences that the students are having in the buildings. So before I go into this upcoming year's budget, I wanted to give you an unaudited result of this past year's budget and how we ended up for the year. This is also in the financial reports, but I'm going to give you a Cliff Notes version so that you can get down to the nitty-gritty. The overall budget that we passed almost a year ago was just under a $3 million deficit. That does include a $4 million capital projects transfer that we do every year. In actuality, due to the fiscal responsibility of all of our budget managers and our staff and close monitoring of all activities, we actually ended up with a surplus of just over $1 million. That is a healthy surplus to have at the end of the year because what it does is it maintains our fund balance percentage as a percentage in relation to our total expenses from one year to the next. We also, because of this financial responsibility over the last year, we have been able to improve our low balance point. As you've heard me mention before, right around the end of May is where we reach our lowest fund balance point. And we want to make sure that we have the funds available to make all of our payments in a timely manner in a way that we don't have to borrow, because short-term borrowing can be very expensive. And what you see in purple is the low point balances or the end of month balances for each month this past year. And the light blue is the low point or the end of month balances the previous year. And you can see specifically as we get from September on, all of our fund balances were higher at the end of the month this past year than they were the previous year. This is going to allow us to ensure that we have that fund balance sustainability that I mentioned earlier. So now I'm going to get into the FY27 budget, proposed budget for all of you, and I'm going to start with the revenues. The revenues are a little bit easier to project because we have some known calculations. You may be used to seeing a graphic like this. The large majority of our revenue here in District 205 comes from local sources, and we are so grateful to have a community that supports high-quality schools. And as you can see, the large majority of all of those revenues take place through revenue garnered through property taxes, 86%. That really allows us to be sustainable on our programs and our experiences because we're less reliant on state and federal revenues, which you're going to see in a future slide have an impact on the overall revenue budget. So as I mentioned before, local property taxes make up the largest amount of our revenues. We are in a tax-capped county. DuPage County and Cook County are both tax-capped, which means local property taxes are capped at CPI, or the rate of inflation, which for this upcoming year is going to be 2.7%. From state funding and federal funding, we expect most areas to remain largely flat, and we do expect our transportation and our out-of-district tuition reimbursement to drop slightly, as well as our title funds at the federal level are expected to decrease this coming year. Interest rates, before I mentioned that interest rates were expected to drop, now forecasters are expecting it to remain steady, at least for the next year, before we start seeing those interest rates drop. This is a summary of all the revenues that we are proposing in this budget. Last year's actual revenues were $172.5 million. And the tentative proposed budgeted revenues for this upcoming year is $175.4 million. That's an estimated revenue increase of 1.7%. Again, a balance between that 2.7% cap on property tax increase balanced with the remaining fairly flat at the state and federal level. I'm sorry. This is This slide gives you a brief summary of that breakdown. You can see that column that has a black header. That is the unaudited fiscal year 2026 numbers, and the tentative column is just to the right of that for fiscal year 2027, again, representing an overall increase of 1.7% from last year's actuals to this year's budgeted. Now I'm going to turn to expenditures. Expenditures is one that we spend a great deal of time working with all of our buildings and all of our departments. I want to thank all my colleagues, both here at the table as well as all of our administrators across the district who have spent a lot of time really analyzing all of their budgets to be as efficient as possible without negatively impacting the student experience. So for expenses, I'm going to cut straight to the Cliff Notes version of our total expenditures. Last year's unaudited actuals, $165.9 million. This year's tentative budget calls for those expenditures to be $175 million, just over that $175 million mark. This is an increase of about 5.5%. If you remember, our revenues are projected to increase by 1.7%. So our expenditures are outpacing our revenues, which is why we have to find those efficiencies. This is a breakdown of our budget in relation to object, and you can see salaries and benefits represent almost 3/4 of our entire budget. The people working in our schools are what support the programs and support our students. And we're so glad to have high-quality staff working for us. And it is natural for salaries and benefits to be about this percentage of a total budget. I'm going to give you a brief rundown of some of the major objects that I mentioned in that last pie graph. Salaries are in alignment with our collective bargaining agreements with all three of them, and we also have other known contractual commitments related to salaries. Those salary expenditures are expected to increase by about 3.3% compared to this past year's actual financial figures. Benefits are in line with those salary increases. Benefits consist of Medicare and Social Security, TRS, IMRF, but then it also includes health insurance premiums, which we are estimating to be within this tentative budget at 8%. Our health insurance committee does meet quite a bit in the month of August, so these figures will be updated as we have more solid figures around health insurance. Purchase services are budgeted to escalate about just over 10%, but we have been able to mitigate those. Really, when you think about some of the energy auctions that we've been a part of to capture some of those efficiencies around purchase services without impacting the students' experiences in the classroom. And finally, supplies and equipment are due to increase about 4.1%. Again, all of our administrators have done a great job looking at every line item and seeing how we can capture efficiencies without reducing that experience in the classroom. This is a summary of our expenditures in this proposed budget. You can see total salaries and benefits going from $126.6 million to about $131.9 million. That's the increase between salaries and benefits of about 4.2%. You will also notice that all other expenditures are increasing by 9.8%. Again, this is budgeted versus last year's actuals. There was significant savings around the purchase services in this past year's budget. In addition to what I presented on revenues and expenditures, this board has made a commitment to to maintain our facilities, not just about the referendum, but beyond the referendum, making sure that we have adequate funds to ensure that all buildings are being kept up. So every year, we transfer $4 million from our operations and maintenance fund into the capital projects fund. The process of doing that is we present in November what our proposed capital projects are. This board then approves it. We bring forth all the bids and other expenditures in the spring so we can get started right at the very end of the school year. So this slide gives you a summary of all the revenues and expenditures all put together. Again, these figures are taken from the previous figures, and I wanted to draw your attention to last year's budget compared to this year's budget. Last year's budget ended up a total of just under $3 million of a deficit. That includes that $4 million transfer for capital projects. This year's proposed budget has a deficit just under $4 million of a deficit, again, including that $4 million capital projects transfer. I also wanted to highlight on this slide our capital lease payments. Capital leases are the ability to secure equipment and spread the cost over multiple years. We are making a concerted effort to reduce that because capital leases also incur some interest charges, and we want to reduce that footprint on interest charges. And so we've intentionally spent some money around paying for some of this equipment outright this year. And so you'll see over the course of the next several years that those capital lease payments will slowly fade into being a zero in about 3 years. Finally, this slide is full of all sorts of numbers, and I'm sure everybody who's viewing this video is happy to just jump right into every single one of these dollar figures. But I wanted to highlight the column that has what you should be looking at. This is the tentative budget right here, and the revenues are on top, the expenditures right below that. The transfers are kind of in that middle section. The transfers look a little, when I say a $4 million transfer, it shows that there's a $9 million transfer, but that $9 million transfer is because we are legally required to move it from the working cash fund to the operations and maintenance fund, and then we have to count it as a transfer again from the operations and maintenance fund into the capital projects fund. So it looks more inflated than it actually is. It's just more of a clerical point. You can see in the orange that I've just highlighted here, the total surplus for this year's budget is $358,013. That is before the board's transfer for the capital projects. And what's in green is the total impact on our overall fund balance, which would be a net deficit of just under $4 million. We have taken really important steps to be more efficient and be thinking long-term by lowering some of the costs that don't necessarily impact the classroom, but really benefit us for the long term. We have, as I mentioned before, we have some capital leases. We have outright purchased some of that technology equipment this year. I thank Mr. Gomez for working with me to make sure that we could secure making those purchases instead of securing a capital lease for that. We anticipate that would be a savings of about $75,000 a year in interest once we have paid off all of our capital leases. We also have gotten an opportunity to purchase curriculum materials at a discount when we buy multiple years. So we have a 3-year purchase of some of our consumable materials, and that's going to save us 10% on the total cost of those materials. And we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at our fixed assets, which are our large equipment purchases. And by making those purchases and putting them on a regular schedule, we anticipate significantly reducing the repair costs. This would be our vehicles, our AED machines, our appliances in our schools, and our large equipment for some of our substantial programs in our buildings. So I just wanted to remind you, I believe that this budget really represents the key priorities of that I mentioned at the very beginning. It does provide a sustainability around our fund balance while also ensuring that our programs and our facilities are adequately maintained for our students' journey of excellence. As a reminder about our budget timeline, after this board votes to whether to put it on display for public review, this will be posted. It says August 1st. We can't post it on a Saturday because our offices are closed, so that should say August 3rd. It will be available here in the district office, and it will also be posted on the website for anybody to review the tentative budget. We will have a Finance and Ops Committee meeting on September 9th where we will review any modifications that have been made since this July 28th meeting. And then on September 22nd, we will bring you the final budget for approval. At this time, I turn it back over to you, Mrs. Arvanites.
Thank you. I can open it up to the board for comments, questions. Anybody want to start? Go ahead, Courtney. Sure.
Yeah, I'll go. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it. I know how much work goes into putting this presentation together for us every year, so I do appreciate it, especially, is this your first one? Second? Oh, my God. How did that happen?
It's his
You
first.
You barely knew what was going on last time, so. So I think, obviously we've all heard over the past year a lot of the cost-saving measures that you and your team and the district has put in place through the RFPs and lots of analyzing of contracts and rethinking the way we're spending our money. I would not be proud of myself if I didn't bring up the energy audit again, so. Just gonna auction, sorry, just remind me. But, so do you think that, in that's slide 13 where we're talking about our estimated expenditures increasing over 5%, do you think that's like a direct cause from all these cost-saving measures that we're able to do this? Or is this expenditure increase just the cost of what we already have in place? I'm trying to understand are we committing additional resources and things to our students and our student experiences, or is this just what it looks like, busing contracts and other things like that are causing this 5.5% increase?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's two layers to that. Number one, in terms of student experience, we have made considerable efforts to make sure that, if anything, we are enhancing our students' experience. Some of what we had talked about earlier this spring is specifically around the high school. There were some opportunities in our science and our family and consumer science courses that we wanted to enhance their experience, and we did that through this budget as we promised when we were talking about school fees. I would say that it is fair to assume that without the cost reduction and mitigation measures that we have taken over this past year, we would certainly see that percentage, that expenditure increase much higher than 5%. In fact, a lot of school districts are going through this same sort of pain where we are seeing close to double-digit increases in expenditures in some other school districts. So a combination of capturing those efficiencies and making sure that we still have our sights set on the highest quality experience for all of our students.
I mean, because it does kind of look, with all that effort, that we are, and I know it shows a negative because of the commitment we have to our capital projects, but it does show pretty much we're at flat budget, right? Mm-hmm. Like 175 in revenue, 175 in expenses, right? And to me, that's a success. I mean, I don't think, I can't remember seeing that in the time I've been here. So, and I don't think people appreciate that. And so it's just, when I look at this presentation and I hear you talk about it, it really makes me feel very happy. It brings me joy, as mahjong players say. Nikki, now you have to start saying that. But so I really do appreciate it, and I'm excited, really excited, because when I hear you talk about in 3 years, that $1 million is going to drop off because, we're getting rid of those leases like that. So we are just on such a positive trajectory. And so I just really want to give you and your team and the district a lot of props for just, where we're at right now. Thank you.
Bev?
You answered most of my questions in your presentation, so I thank you for that, because I appreciate that you make that also clear. So you talked about some of the other things that you're going to be looking into to mitigate our expenses, like you guys did a great job of doing this past year, like capital lease payments and purchase tech equipment. You did that, looking into some of our healthcare costs and through insurance. Is there anything specifically that's coming this next year that you're thinking about that you guys might be looking into? And do you feel like any of those things will have to impact our student experience or services that we offer to our students as things just keep rising in cost, it seems like, every year, and we have to find new ways to save money and bring in revenue if we can?
Yeah, so
That comes to mind.
some really great questions. I do want to emphasize some of our large equipment, or it's called capital outlay, is such a critical component that you can expect us to bring forward a replacement plan for some of those costs. Identifying the age of all of this equipment. We do that at a facilities level. We can identify how long a roof has been on top of a building, but we really haven't done that at the equipment level. I'm going to give an example of our AED machines, putting them on a regular replacement cycle, so we're not waiting until it's like, oh, it looks like it's on its last legs. No, we're going to identify that we're going to...
There is a doctor in the house.
Yes. I'm sorry, I misspoke in terms of representing that. Instead of identifying, yes, identifying its useful life and replacing all of this equipment well before the end of its useful life. Another example is our vehicles. We have several vehicles that if we put it on a replacement plan, not only are we taking care of the vehicles are more cost efficient in terms of fuel when they're newer, and they also endure less maintenance on the core engine parts when they are within their first 10 years. So we're going to have a replacement plan on all of these. So we're replacing them all with the highest quality products on the back end.
So it gives you some time to be able to look ahead and find the best prices on things, rather than, as we all know, having to buy something, especially a car, at the last minute. You're not always getting the best price, so that makes sense.
Correct, and actually timing it correctly as well. So we hope to bring to you throughout the year, this is the ideal opportunity to buy a vehicle instead of saying, let's wait to see if there's enough funds. We're devoting the funds to it and then making the purchase at the appropriate time during the year.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe.
Joe, I have a few things, maybe, oh, sorry, were you going to go, Nikki? Oh, Brian, go ahead.
A couple things. You had mentioned that the federal funding, which is about 2% of our budget, or our revenue, somewhere around there. And the IDEA grants are sticking around, but the title grants might be less than before. What's that impact in terms of services to our students, Title I students?
Yes, so Ms. Lyons and I have been talking about title funds. Her department has managed those title funds, and certainly the reduction of title funds has an impact on the budget. However, we've made a conscious effort to say we are not reducing the services that we provide that are normally offered through title funds. So we are absorbing that into our non-title fund budget with that.
Thank you. Also, as we look at this, and you had mentioned a revenue increase of 1.7, but a spending increase of 5.5%. And with CPI kind of hovering around 2.7 to 3% each year. As you had mentioned, the health insurance has gone up 8%, and I will say, like, that's a huge relief, as I've seen it up to 20% increases in other areas, and it's kind of sad that 8% increase is a relief, but that's good and something we might see an increase even more over the next coming years. What are we doing for years 2, 3, 4, 5 out? Because it's not sustainable to have a revenue increase of 2% and a spending increase of 5%.
Absolutely, and that's where we do seek those opportunities for long-term contracts. Just this past year, we secured a 2-year contract with our towel service company that they offered that it would stay flat that second year. So every opportunity that we have to have contract renewals where there might be an incentive to elongate, as long as we're happy with the services, that we can ensure that we're being fiscally responsible and at the same time securing long-term contracts.
Thanks. Thanks again. And the last thing I just want to say, with the going from a $3 million deficit to the $1 million revenue, or surplus rather, it's even more amazing as I look over the last 12 months and see all the times the principals have come in here and departments have presented and all the wonderful things that we've been able to provide for the students and the community, and still come up on, with the surpluses really says a lot about this team. So thank you all.
Now can I go? Or is Nikki going to go? Well, a lot of what I was going to say is already said, which is quite nice. Thanks, everyone. But a couple things I just wanted to continue to highlight, and I might have 1 or 2 questions. You may have answered them already, but we'll see. Going back to what Courtney highlighted, this idea that the way I looked at your budget, Joe, it was last year's actuals versus estimated. It does, to me, very much, like Courtney said, look like a break-even budget, which is because the $4 million is what I consider variable. The board directs a $4 million transfer for CapEx. They of course are things that we have to continue to take care of, but that's a place that's a little more flexible, I would say. And so to see our daily kind of operations come right at budget, we haven't seen that in the 5 years that I've been on the board. So thank you for your hard work there. I also want to highlight, it has been an intentional Board of Education movement towards, we've made an intentional movement as a board to increase our fund balance. And we set that as a priority last year. We've done it through board policy and claiming percentages, right? And that, I think it was 15% or wherever we landed on the policy. And so I just wanted to say thank you for really taking that value, I think, that we set as a board in partnership with the administration, but then doing the work behind it to ensure that the district was in fact attaining that goal or making progress towards that attainment. And it looks like that trajectory is in its maybe first or second year of that swing. And it's something that we as a board, many of us who've been here for a little bit, when we've seen natural disasters happen, and then the district relies on those funds to make sure students can continue to be educated, it becomes pretty important that we have a healthy fund balance. And so I'm glad to see that intentional decision-making was something that the administration took and owned and really produced and returned on. The federal funds and their continued expectation to decrease this year, and I want to say, I know you said it's for this year, but it would also be potentially beyond, right? Like, are we looking at a multiple year potential for a decrease in both federal and state funding? And looking at that 5% that Brian just brought up, or 2, I think was the federal side, and wanting to maintain those programs, I think you just answered it, that we're trying to look at ways to absorb, because we're not interested in cutting programs that work for kids. Yep.
Yeah, I think there is a very realistic potential that we could see further cuts to federal funding for District 205. You know, some of the early indications around title funding is we can expect that to continue to decrease. We're holding our breath for other federal funds that we receive hopefully we won't see other reductions, National School Lunch Program, IDEA, those sorts of programs. We're monitoring that closely, but we are anticipating that we may have to continue looking at this process of absorbing it into our general funds.
Yeah, and I think what I appreciate most about your work, Joe, is that, you know, we now are looking at this in both an annual basis, so we could say, okay, it was a break even plus our 4 million for CapEx, but also we're looking at it as long term. And so we're looking at 3 years out and potentially 5 years out. And it's evident with your decision making around, for example, leases versus replacement costs, you know, and this annual pricing versus, or expense versus purchasing and then paying for something later on. Can you talk a little bit more in detail before I close about that process? So the cars is a great example. So right now we're used to spending, say, $100,000 a year. It's probably more than that on our four-wheel vehicles, right, for the entire district. What does that look like in a longer range plan, financial plan?
Yeah, so there's a lot of data that we are pouring through right now because vehicles is a great example, because we're not just talking about the purchase price of all those vehicles, it's also the resale price of our existing vehicles. If we're hanging on to it for a very long period of time, the resale value is very low. Not saying that we would hang on to a vehicle for a couple of years and then offload it, but certainly finding that I'm going to call it that sweet spot of when's the best time to sell it to get the maximum value, but also get the best value for the years that we have that equipment as well.
Really good addition, thanks. And it brings me into what I'm noticing, and this is more for the board, is really, I think what you're bringing is a change of mindset when we're looking at our financial planning. And I say that because in the past, we talked a lot about our capital or assets being at end of life and wondering, can we make it one more year? Because the budget might have required that to avoid the negative impact on the student experience, right? But what I'm hearing you tell us now, and this mindset shift, is really around a replacement plan and a long range and this proactivity that's taking place, so that we know that in 5 or 10 years, we will have the financial capacity to make these decisions when the time's right, rather than this reactive, like, oh no, we need a new roof, we only have 4 million in CapEx, we might need 5 this year, and then where are we gonna get it from? And that, I think, is truly an important shift in mindset and how we're approaching our financial matters, and really speaks to the financial responsibility that you're taking on and owning, and I just wanna say thank you, because I think it's helping the board better understand where we truly are financially, but also it'll help future boards financially plan for, can we afford this? When the principal comes and asks for something, can we afford it? And this is a really great way for us to grapple and understand whether or not we can. So thank you for all your work in that. Anyone else? And I will say, I know it's not just you. I know the leaders are playing a really strong role. Our principals, our department chairs and coordinators, our directors that are here at district office, everyone plays a role and owns a piece of the puzzle, which I'll go back to, speaks to your leadership capacity and ability. People are following, and I think that this is really hard work, and these are tough decisions to make, but together we can work through it, and it's evident that that's what you're doing with your team and the people in our district.
President Arvanites, you actually, that is exactly what I wanted to say. And you said it so eloquently that due to Mr. Blomquist's leadership and his education, that this budget was a collective of the leaders of all of the departments that are sitting around this table, and also our leaders within our buildings. And I just want to highlight that again, the understanding and the awareness of where we are. We are so privileged to serve Elmhurst District 205. We serve a community with very high expectations that have first and foremost been set by this Board of Education. We serve a very engaged community where there are perspectives and opinions and thoughts that we continue to listen to and value. And after all that's said and done, with the rising costs that we've seen of inflation over the last several years, for our team to come together and to still be very thoughtful and to scrutinize every budget line and all of our costs, and really asking ourselves, are we getting a return on our investment for our students' outcomes and their experience? And to answer that yes, and to still present the budget that we've presented. I could not be prouder of our district and of all of the leaders that have contributed to what Mr. Blomquist has presented today. And just thank you to the board. I know that throughout the year, we bring and we ask for certain things, and for you all to be able to think through that and to have the information and to ensure that the direction and the alignment, we're on one accord with that, and that we are being fiscally responsive based on what we receive from our taxpayers is really, really also administration appreciates that, and that's why and how we're able to continue to serve and provide what we provide for our students and continue to see positive outcomes that we are seeing in our students. So just again, thank you to the board and to the administration team for their work.
Looks like nothing else from the board on this one. Okay, we'll move on to item B. Thank you again, Joe. We're moving on to early literacy assessment.
Yes, we are.
Dr. Rubenstein.
And so I am really excited to bring to you this evening a proposal on behalf of Mrs. Lyons and myself and our two teams to strengthen our kindergarten through fifth grade MTSS programming with some updated assessment tools. There was a recent amendment to the Illinois School Code which requires that prior to entering into a new contract for an assessment, we have to substantially review that in a public setting with the board and allow for public comment on it. There's no public hearing per se, but we are, our plan is to present this to you this evening for a formal vote next month. So I'm going to talk with you a little bit about why we're doing this, which has to do with some new state requirements, our proposed assessment, which is called Acadience, and some recommendations for moving forward. So in the 25-26 school year, this last school year, the State Board of Education began requiring some additional alignment to their literacy guidelines that they put out for the entire state. So there are some additional guidelines that have been put into place which really cite some specific subtests, and they are listed there on the screen, though I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't see them exactly, but they are for oral language and vocabulary, letter knowledge, non-word reading fluency, oral reading fluency, word reading tasks, and some other pieces there. So as a result of that, these skills are listed as screening measures at different grade levels. And so screening measures are things that have been identified through research as holding validity as a predictor for future reading achievement. They should be assessed briefly, and they are areas for which we can align specific interventions based on those results. The current assessments that we have used, which you'll see in just a second, is the K-3 MAP growth and early literacy screenings. They don't meet those specific requirements. And without getting into all of the technical details of this, there are some things that were available in MAP growth that aligned perfectly. There were other things that MAP growth didn't really assess perfectly, and that newer assessments are more readily measuring. So some of those things are the need to consistently measure students' rate of improvement over time in word reading fluency. MAP is adaptive. There are some requirements about word recognition skills that students have never seen before. This also will act as an additional measure to confirm the effectiveness of our foundations pieces and some of the early work that we're doing there. There is also need to confirm which students require targeted and intensive intervention plans, so we can plan for discrete skill work. And there's also a new requirement under the Illinois Literacy Plan for a dyslexia screener for all students in K-1. And so what we are bringing to you what we're bringing to you tonight is an assessment called Acadience. And for those of you who have been around for a little bit of time, this is the newest version of an assessment called DIBELS, which is a dynamic indicator of basic early literacy skills, which several of us around the table used to give on Palm Pilots to our early literacy, to our early students, and did it fondly. Acadience has purchased DIBELS and all of their assessments, and the Acadience rating is a nationally recognized assessment, and it meets this exact purpose. So screens all students for early reading risk, monitors student progress throughout the year, informs instruction. It has some of these additional pieces with phonological and phonemic awareness skills, letter sound knowledge. So the student is actually responding to the teacher. So the teacher, you'll see in just a second, is administering this in a one-to-one setting with every single student. Gets at their reading accuracy, reading fluency, basic reading comprehension skills. They are going to be asked to identify the letters and the sounds and each of those pieces there, and segment spoken words into sounds. De, g, as in the phoneme segmenting. Read words and nonsense words, read a short passage aloud, and retell what they read. It takes between 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is the estimated for the older grades. It's really probably for older grades, meaning like the third graders that would still need this, but really usually 5 to 8 minutes per student. And it's individually administered and goes from there. So we would do it 3 times per year, beginning, middle, and end, and this would replace some of the additional progress monitoring pieces that we're doing with team members. So Acadience really provides us with some timely information, monitoring whether our interventions are working, allows us to make some additional data-informed instructional decisions, and aligns really nicely with our MTSS programs and allows for some additional tracking. So without going into too much detail there, our proposal here is that beginning in this school year, we would adopt Acadience as our universal screener there. It would allow some time for administration of the assessment still early in the early part of the year. It integrates with what's called the Fun Hub, which has to do with the foundations assessments to support a coherent assessment process, and really allows us to make some solid recommendations for additional Tier 1 differentiation and student groupings at Tier 2 and Tier 3. So to put it on the screen here for everybody, the current universal screener for MAP growth primary is in K1 is MAP growth primary. We are recommending that we discontinue the use of MAP growth primary and replace it with Acadience reading. In grades 2 and 3, this would be an additional, only the oral reading fluency. And in grades 4 and 5, there would be no change. So there will be some additional changes that we are already planning for changes on related to FastBridge benchmarking for our K-3 students with IEPs and who are in that problem-solving process that Mrs. Lyons and I have already started to plan for. So we're asking for board review this evening here in July and asking for approval in August. We are working right now on a entire school-based support plan for the one-to-one administration because that is something that will need to happen there beginning in August and fall administration for the first through third graders. And so we're looking at like, how do we train all of our reading specialists and special education teachers and instructional coaches and other people to be able to support with that administration. And then finalizing some professional learning plans for assistant principals, school psychologists, other professionals around here. There will also plan to be, because this is new for all of our families and they have become used to understanding a MAP growth report over the years. So we will plan to have some parent learning along with that when the reports are rolled out. So parents will be able to see the results of these assessments and in the usual way that we provide those results to parents and families. And then we will provide some support for families who may need some additional learning around that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Have a
Kelly.
quick question.
Dr. Henry.
So, you mentioned the requirement for K through 1 to have the universal screener for dyslexia. Is this a Cadence dyslexia or is that something different?
So Acadians will meet the.
It
yes,
will meet
exactly.
the requirement. Okay, thank you.
So I think it's always a fine line balancing how much assessments we give students, like the stress that causes them, like balancing that benefit of learning where they're at any given moment and where they might need some help. So I'm grateful to hear that it's replacing that optional, that MAP in the younger age. So that makes me feel a little good because I do stress about the time taken away from learning for testing. Not just the disruption in the classroom for the teachers and everything, but also for the anxiety it really puts on the students and families. So when you're talking about replacing that MAP for the K1s with Acadians, do you feel that it's just going to give us more specialized and detailed assessment of where our early learners are so that changes the trajectory of what resources we're getting them? Is that our goal here?
That is one of the primary goals. So right now with MAP growth, it is a great and very robust assessment and aligns with other assessments that we provide. This will provide us much more detailed information about every single student that sits in front of us, about where they are reading and where they may need additional levels of support. I have family members who are reading specialists. There are reading specialists who work with us every day. And the thing that sticks with me most often is that there is nothing that can replace a teacher sitting one-to-one listening to their student read to gain information about what's working and what's not working. And this assessment will require us to do that more often.
Because, so we're ahead of the requirement, right?
Yep.
Because I don't
Yes.
think, ISB says 2027.
Yep.
Right, but we're starting this 2026 school
We are,
year.
yes.
And so my fear, because I think I have seen this before, is that, that when you talk about professional learning, the screen right up here,
Yep.
is that are those people assessing our kids going to be ready? I mean, summer is hard, and it's like, there's a lot that that gets thrown at teachers to be prepared for. Oh my gosh, I think we're 3 weeks away from the start of school. And so when you talk about these screenings, they're going to begin in August of 2026, and we're just starting to give the PLC to have all these people ready for those screenings. It makes me anxious for not just the students, but it also makes me anxious for all these people, the assessors.
Yes.
That, it's something else on their plate that they are now going to have to be prepared for. So I just worry that we're rushing it. So
Yeah.
just tell me how you feel about that and how
Yep.
ready you think we are, because we have seen in the past, rushing these things just does not work out
Not the way to
well.
go, right.
So I really, tell me how
Yep.
that balance is.
My professional opinion is that if, and I've talked with Mrs. Lyons about this quite a bit, is that if we were short on time, that we would not be moving forward right now. We have built in professional learning time to institute days, to the first several weeks of school, to allow people to have the tools. Like I said, this is an update to an earlier version that the district used many, many years ago. And so some of those people who have been around will be like, oh, this is Dibbles. This is how we do Dibbles, which was a very common refrain from people.
So when would these assessments happen for the students?
Late August into early September.
Yeah, again, because I feel like it's that fine balance. I want the assessments.
Yep.
Because I want teachers to be able to
To have that
pivot for our
information, yes.
students' needs. But
Yes.
I just worry about how chaotic the beginning of the school year is
Yes.
and what that looks like. So
Yes.
I'll be anxious to hear about the results, not just from how the students did and how the assessments work, but how the teachers felt about digesting it early and giving it so early for our students,
Great.
so. And I mean, that's great feedback, that so many of our teachers are gonna be like, oh, I know what this
Yes.
is. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I
Follow-up.
think this has been a part of a multi-year journey as it relates to our MTSS. I think one of the things we wanted to give a high level and condense. I'm sure if Ms. Lyons was here, we probably are going to get some feedback after she watches this, because we wanted to kind of talk about where we've been on this journey. And yes, Scarborough's rope. We have as a district, I'm pleased and so proud to say that we've been actually several steps ahead of the state. And our adoptions of high-quality, research-based materials that align with the science of reading continues to have a positive impact on our students' growth. As a district holistically, we're approaching, 76, 77% proficiency. When you get at that level of proficiency, that, there are some things that are happening in Tier 1 that is really working for majority of our students. And the next few years for us is going to now starting to look at where it's not, where our Tier 1 instruction and where the supports are still not having the impact we want to have on particular groups of students. And we have to, in order for us to make those shifts as it relates to our Tier 2 and our Tier 3, we're really starting to make sure that we have the right information, so that we make sure that any, small tweaks or adjustments that are made are really helping us answer and get at the right problem in the right area of concern for our individual students. We're now at the point as a district, because of the growth, because of the work, that we're digging into individual students. And you all saw our work with NextPath. So I think this is just a continuation. I do think that we have learned a lot as it relates to adoption of materials and knowing and being able to assess where we are within that implementation, knowing how to, maybe adjust pacing so that it does not negatively impact our staff and our teachers' experience, even though we are craving for even more specific, delineated, skill-based information that we know is fundamental for our early readers, and particularly those that might not still be making the progress that we would like for them to make. So I really appreciate, Ms. Chapman, that push, and I think we will continue to. But I also, I know we're bringing it to the board, but this has been a part of ongoing some conversations and even feedback from teachers and school leaders and reading specialists, wanting and craving the information that's going to help us best serve our students, and particularly some of our students that maybe are not making the progress that we would hope that they would make.
Nikki?
Yeah, just a couple of follow-up questions to Courtney's comments. So if you didn't do it now, essentially this timing would be next August, essentially be the beginning of next year, or can you implement it at any point in time?
So the reason for doing it right now, as opposed to in the middle of the school year or next August, is that it's going to provide our teams with the most updated information that's aligned to the early literacy guidelines or the literacy guidelines from the state. Could we implement it in the middle of the year? We could. It wouldn't provide us with clean data, and we're also not meeting the requirements as set forth by ISB. I think that our teams are ready to move forward with implementation of this and are hungry for something new. This is something that our principal leaders have been asking us about as we are looking at our literacy programs, like Dr. Campbell said, when you look at some of these discrete skills that we are going to be assessing here, those are not things that we are currently assessing, and there is a hunger for doing that right now.
Got it. And then one other question, and I'm sorry if I missed this. On what slide is this? I don't even know. Where you talked about where you're doing this for K through 1, but 2 through 3 will have both MapGrowth and Acadience. Is there a reason they're doing both?
Yep. So we are required to have some sort of oral reading fluency measure for all students as a universal screener. And so that ORF is the universal, it's the oral reading fluency screening that we would do through Acadience. MapGrowth doesn't have that. Yep.
But we couldn't take MapGrowth off, correct?
Because of the fact that MapGrowth measures
there.
some other things.
They do both there. Okay,
yes.
got it. Okay. All right, just making sure. Thank you.
Yep. Second grade is where MapGrowth really switches over.
The oral reading fluency is just that 10-minute assessment that you were.
It'll probably even be less
Less than that. So
Yeah.
it's not a major assessment. Yeah,
No.
right. Because when I first read it, I kind of was in agreement. I was like, in third grade, they're taking IAR, they're doing MAP, but it's a 10-minute or less assessment
Less,
with your
yeah.
teacher or someone you know that, and like you said, I think that's very important. So
Yes.
I think it makes sense now that I know more information. Yeah.
Kevin, are we, so that map growth primary, let's use that as an example, was that giving us data points that we'll now lose, especially when we're looking at kind of the trajectory of a 5-year, 6-year elementary experience?
So what will be different is that, so we are talking about reading here.
Yeah.
And so every student has received, every family has received a report that has reading and math on one page. We will not have reading on that same page. We'll just have a math assessment for the first several years in our district. But we are able to assess more discrete skills that will give us better information.
For instructional purposes, right. And that, I was going to go there. So as a teacher, that's probably one of the most challenging and frustrating things is when we're working with students in our classroom and trying to implement instructional strategies or learning strategies that don't result in what what we're looking to do to support that child's growth, right? And it sounds to me as if this universal screener will help identify items that we currently don't have an assessment tool to identify. I think we mentioned dyslexia and a few others in your list. But how important those first couple years, 2 to 3 years of reading and learning and phonetic understanding and all those things are to really creating a strong foundation going into 3rd and 4th and 5th grade, right? So that springboard is going to hopefully be a stronger one as it propels them forward when they grow, or as they grow and learn more. So that immediate, I think what I like most about it is how individualized it is. And somebody mentioned it, I don't remember who, the personal connection with their teacher. Because the teachers they're seeing things in the classroom on a daily basis. And so a screener like this one can help them not just problem solve, but also identify things that may be
Some instructional decisions.
some things that they've seen but haven't been able to really articulate or land.
Yes.
That this can help them kind of open a new lens of like, oh yeah, okay, let me see that, and then here's some strategies that might complement or MTSS or whatever, wherever it's going to fall, right?
Yep, and so you will also recall, those are really, really valid points. You will also recall that K-3 students are receiving really heavy instruction in word decoding through our foundations program, and in concert with Wit and Wisdom, and through all of the work that our students are doing. And so this will align really, really nicely with that.
Yeah, I was going to hit on that. So you mentioned there's some connection to foundations that, through this assessment.
Yes.
And so it won't be so foreign maybe to the students or even the teachers for that matter.
So students are probably not even gonna, they will recognize that they're taking a different assessment, but students will just be asked to read a passage like they have typically read, or to point to the letter A as an example, or point to the B sound on the page, that sort of thing. And so they will be asked to do those sorts of things. So they may not even really
Realize it.
know that something is different.
Yeah, it feels like a small group pullout
It
or an
does,
individual
yes.
pullout, natural part of an
learning.
elementary classroom, or any classroom really for that matter. Yeah,
Yes.
good, okay. Anything else? All right, thank you. We are moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing that there's nothing we'd like to pull, can we have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda items: A, personnel report; B, financial reports; C, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests; D, authorization of public display of fiscal year 26 tentative budget; E, staffing agency contracts; F, MOU, DuPage ROE and Elmhurst USD 205 for regional safe school; G, hazardous routes; H, second read, section 2, Board of Education policy review 200, 220, 2250, 2260, 2265; I, second personnel policy review, wait, sorry, I do that every time.
It's hard to track.
It really is, even with the finger. Hold on, sorry. I, second read, section 4, operational services policy review 440, 4165. J, second read, section 5, personnel policy review 530, 550, 5250, 5330. K, second read, section 6, instructional policy review 650, 665, 6100, 6145, 6170. L, second read, section 7, students policy review 720, 750, 7100, 7185, 7220, 7230, 7240, 7260, 7280, and 7300. M, second read, section 8, community relations policy review 890.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mrs. Assef, second by Mrs. Hostler. Can we please call the vote?
Mrs. Assef?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Bresnahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Slawinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. We're going to our action agenda items. Item A is the transfer of funds for payment of capital leases. Joe?
This is a annual action by the board. This is the capital leases I was referring to earlier. In order to make the payments in August, we need to transfer the funds to the appropriate fund to be paid.
Thank you. Can we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the transfer of $1,039,037.34 from the Education Fund to the Debt Service Fund for the purpose of capital lease payments for the fiscal year 2027.
I'll second.
Motion made by Dr. Henry, second by Mrs. Slawinski. Are there any comments from the board? Seeing none, can we please call the vote?
Dr. Henry? Yes. Mrs. Lewinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Bresnahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mrs. Assif?
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman?
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. The next item is our scoreboard advertising agreement. Am I going back to you, Joe?
Yes, I'm very excited to bring to you this advertising agreement. We are joined by Jean, I believe, is in the audience from the York Athletic Boosters. We've been working on this for about 6 months. Probably even before that, but in putting it into pen and paper, we've been working on coming up with this agreement. This is a true partnership in our ability to secure advertising for our athletic events. Using our digital scoreboards, both the one at the football stadium that has been up for a couple of years, and our new digital scoreboard, which is now installed in the Campbell Gym. This agreement shares some of the both the burden and the benefit of running advertisements. It does take some legwork to secure some advertising, and we're grateful for the York Athletic Boosters who are going to use some of their expertise in order to garner that support from community organizations, while at the same time recognizing the contributions that our athletic teams bring towards bringing these advertising dollars in the door and supporting our student athletes from all sports. We have created a system in which those advertisements, if this agreement is approved, all advertisements would be brought to this board for approval before they are put on any of our digital scoreboards. But we also do it in a way that we can get those advertising agreements in place before the start of our fall season this coming year.
Thank you. Can we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the advertising agreement with the York Athletic Boosters for the 2026-27 season.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mrs. Troutman, second by Dr. Henry. Any comments from the board?
I just have a quick question. I don't know if it's appropriate in this section or the next one. So when the boosters enter into, and Joe maybe, or our boosters can answer, how long are they entering into the agreement with their individual sponsorship for? So when we're getting that sponsor for the football stadium, does that continue into the gym for that scoreboard as well?
Yeah, the intent of the structure, and this is largely at the discretion of the York Athletic Boosters because their partnership is with the advertiser. Our partnership is with the York Athletic Boosters. But at the same time, we've had these conversations, and largely the conversation is around, we want you to buy the package to support our athletic program for all the seasons in which the digital scoreboards are available. So they would be buying a package. They wouldn't be buying, we want October 14th as our day that we want to advertise. We want them to be participants throughout the seasons.
Great, thank you.
And on, just piggybacking on that, and something that I think I want to make sure that we highlight and underscore, since we installed the new digital scoreboard at the York Stadium, this board, the Board of Education, made it very clear that you directed the administration to look for ways to utilize the digital scoreboard in a way to bring in revenue. And over the course of time, there have been many explorations of that. What excites, I would say, Mr. Blomquist and I the most about this partnership is that 100% of the revenues that are generated will benefit our students in our school community. There are other districts that we discussed and talked to and explored that actually uses a third party to do some of that legwork in acquiring advertisement from various businesses. We also, as a district, have a very positive and close relationship with our Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce. So our relationship and partnership with within the business community across Elmhurst, and then to have our athletic boosters further cultivate those relationships in a way to bring the advertisement is what makes Elmhurst so special. And that 100% of the revenues will benefit our students, that we don't have to share that in terms of a third-party advertisement company getting a cut. And so I just want to, again, make sure that that is put in the room as the board, considers this agreement that we're bringing forth to you today.
Brian?
Thanks for getting this done, Joe, and to the athletic boosters, Ms. Turk. Thank you guys for doing this. I do also like that we have 100% of the funds going back to our students. I just had a quick question on two things. One is that the board has to approve all the advertisements before they're done. I guess my question is, we meet every month, but games are weekly or around there. Is there a cutoff date for each time to submit it so that we can vote on it? Or is there any leeway for approval by the district without approval by the board?
That's a great question. We actually put in there that we need the advertisements 2 weeks in advance of a board meeting before it can be placed on it, so that they understand that there are timelines that we need. And largely, we expect these advertisements to remain the same from the first submittal. There might be some changes of the logo is going to go on the left side instead of the right side. Those are immaterial changes, but anything that might be material in changes, we would expect those to come to the board in terms of their messaging.
Okay, and then out of the 50% that the district gets, is that earmarked at all, or is that does that just go to our overall funding?
Right now, as the revenue is taken in, it is into our general fund. There are no restricted accounts except for our activity accounts. This would go in as local revenue into our general fund. But our intent behind bringing in this revenue is that we can have ongoing support of our student programs.
Okay. And this is, what's in front of us is only up to June 30th of this school or fiscal year.
That is correct. Since this is kind of our inaugural run at this, we wanted to give everybody a chance to experience it. We do expect we're going to slow walk it this first year and make sure that everything is just right. And so, I want to temper everybody's enthusiasm in terms of, what kind of numbers can we see from this? We really have to experience it in the first year. The booster organization also needs to experience it in this first year, and then we can reflect upon it and determine if there's other adjustments that need to be made going forward.
All right, thank you.
Joe, just a point of clarity, please, sorry. You mentioned that once an advertisement's approved, it's approved, right? And so say it's the same advertiser from year to year, is it considered already approved? And then eventually, are we only approving new advertisers to the pool? Advertisements to the pool?
That is correct. Once you have approved the remember, the approval is for the advertisement, not the partnership with the advertiser. So it would not need reapproval every year, as long as that advertisement remains the same as what was originally proposed.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to figure out the load of advertisements that come forward for approval. It sounds like it might be heavier in the first year, but then over time, as we see currently at the football games, those ads kind of stay the same. And so they wouldn't need to be approved on an annual basis unless the artwork is significantly changed.
Correct, and I do think it's worth mentioning that even though this month we are presenting it, if this agreement is approved, we are presenting it as an action item. All future advertisement approvals would go on the consent agenda, which you could then remove and put it in as an action item. But that is another way that it's not overly burdensome on the process.
Well, it becomes a part of our standard work, and so that would make sense under consent, and the board could pull any consent item if needed. Yeah, that makes sense. I had another one and I just lost it. Hang on, it'll come to me. I just want to say again, it's been a lot of work and partnership, and I've heard about it step by step along the way, and I appreciate the work of the boosters and really and Joe and his team. I know Dr. Campbell has sat in too. I think this partnership really demonstrates the uniqueness of our community. And that's what I'm probably most excited about, aside from supporting our supporting of our athletes and our athletic programs with the financial piece. But really, the uniqueness of Elmhurst and our tight-knit community and our partnership with our services and businesses and organizations and how those longstanding relationships really work out for students. And so I just wanted to highlight that this is another example of our ongoing commitment, not just to our community, but our partnership with our fundraising bodies and also our organizations to really make student experiences better, and so that they continue to evolve. So thank you for all your hard work and for your undertaking of this quite large, I'd say, task to not just find advertisers, but also manage those relationships as you move forward. So thank you for that. And then on the back end, Joe, I do have one more question. I'm sorry. When we look at that shared responsibility of the finances, what does that look like when it comes to the district? Meaning, so we've had to approve donations in the past over a certain amount. What does that look like?
Yes, so this is actually not considered a donation because this is a partnership agreement. So that 50% that comes to the district is actually meeting the obligations of the agreement. So,
Okay.
and in terms of the advertiser making the payment, they are making that payment in exchange for the service that we are providing of putting the advertising up on the scoreboard.
Okay, so then last thing, I look forward to going through this for a year. The flexibility for sure is very much appreciated. And, we're starting something new. None of us have done this before, neither your office or the boosters to this extent. And so to have that opportunity in a year to sit down and say, okay, what's working, maybe what's not working, and that we can continue to work together to ensure that as this goes on in the future, it's working for all parties involved, I think is a great add to the agreement. So thank you for your willingness to do that and to put that in. Anything else, Kelly?
I think maybe this is piggybacking off of what you just asked, Athena, but
Sure.
I'm not sure. So will the boosters, when they receive their 50% of the advertisement money funds, do they have full discretion over what they use it toward? Or does that have to be approved by us as well, ultimately, or no? Because it's, okay. Well, because I know some PTA things we have to, because it sends us on a donation.
It's
is what you were just
different,
saying.
yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a
Yeah.
donation.
So will they then just do how they always do with whatever funds they have within their booster program, then to use it for whatever they need it for?
Yeah, they work in partnership with Mr. Wagner in identifying needs of various programs, and then they, as a board, meet to determine availability of funds and disbursement of funds.
Anything else? Okay, can we call the vote?
Mrs. Troutman?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Assif?
Yes.
Mrs. Slawinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bresnahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mrs. Urbanidis?
Yes, 6 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. And we have our final item here for action. It's the digital advertising. Back to Joe. This kind of piggybacks off of our last agreement, yep.
So that now that you have approved the agreement, these are 12 advertisements that are being brought forward to you. You may be asking, how could we have these arrangements already? These are actually images that are on the vinyl banners. And so these are existing partnerships with the Boosters organization that are being brought forward to you for display on the digital scoreboards in a similar way as the banners that are existing.
Great, can we please have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the proposed advertisements as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Bresnahan, second by Dr. Henry. Anything from the board? All right, can we call the vote?
Mr. Bresnahan?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mrs. Slawinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Assif?
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman?
Yes.
Mrs. Urbanidis?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. Thank you again for being here tonight and for all the work. Okay, we'll move on to superintendent communication. Almost there.
Almost there. There are several updates that we would like to share with our Board of Education and community. And I'm going to first ask my colleague, who you have heard a lot from this evening, Mr. Joe Blomquist is going to just kind of share a little bit in terms of our summer cleaning highlights. We oftentimes, think of summer as a time of rest and pause, and there is a subset of our community and staff members that actually ramp up and to ensure that our buildings are appropriately prepared to receive students. And so Mr. Blomquist is just going to share a brief update on that work.
Yes, so we are now in the 10th week of our summer cleaning of all buildings. Our team of custodial and maintenance staff have been hard at work, giving every space a thorough cleaning and completing any necessary repairs. This year, the crews from multiple buildings clustered up and tackled each K through 8 building, pre-K through 8 building during a concentrated 2 or 3 week stint. While both shifts of our York custodial crew have been giving each classroom the necessary attention to be ready for learning in just a matter of weeks. Finally, our maintenance team has been dispatched throughout the district, taking care of significant projects that could not be normally taken care of while classes are in session. We're grateful for all the efforts and energy our teams have put forward this summer to serve our school communities behind the scenes. And this is just a few pictures of some of our clusters that have been dispatched throughout the district.
Next, we have some important dates. So as we've already mentioned, the start of school is right around the corner, and we wanted to make sure that we share some important dates. Ms. Daniels?
So starting a couple years ago, my team started compiling this important dates graphic because it was a lot of different dates that could be found in multiple places, and it was really helpful. The feedback we received from our families was that they really appreciated this graphic to have all of this information in one place. So this year's graphic is ready. It was ready just in time for tonight's meeting. You'll find everything from our winter breaks to our spring break to late arrivals to no student days, to graduation, to 8th grade promotion. So all of the important dates throughout the year are there. This is going to be shared in the welcome back message that goes out to families with the kickoff of a lot of information for in Parent Square, and then it'll also be shared on the website as well as on our social media pages. Next is the latest edition of our Community Connections newsletter hit mailboxes in July. It can also be found electronically on our website, and it shares a lot of insight into our sweet new tradition from our PTA, where we talk about we talked about it a little bit at our last meeting, where the graduating seniors go back to their elementary schools and get to walk the halls one last time. So we did some interviews with some of our seniors and the PTA group, and so there's a video story and a written story that accompanies that. Additionally, and directly connected to the communications highlight tonight, our other feature is about the amazing community partnerships. You talked about what makes Elmhurst special. This is just one of those things. Amazing community partnerships with some of our Elmhurst businesses and our transition center students. As always, you can also find helpful information about registration and highlighting our recent excellent educator, as well as a recap and highlights from our graduation, including photos and video of that.
So this next highlight I am very, very excited to share. This makes Ms. Daniels a little bit uncomfortable. But our communication team actually participates in a national conference. It's the National School Public Relations Association. And here in District 205, our team this year, as in years past, but this year specifically I want to highlight, recently attended the National School Communicators Conference, where they were awarded 3 of the top awards from this organization. They received a 2026 INSPRA Award of Excellence, which is the highest award that a district communications department could receive, for their video series for the 2026 Publication and Digital Media Excellence Award contest for the D205 Safety in 60 entry. They also was awarded an Award of Excellence for their handbook guide in INSPRA's 2026 Publications and Digital Media Excellence Award contest for the kindergarten registration guide under the category of handbook. And last, and certainly not least, which I'm sure we all agree, that this is how we march. Theatrical trailer entry also won the top award. So congratulations to Ms. Daniels and her mighty communications department of 3. With that being said, we are very pleased to share a communication highlight that is a snippet of the communications, community connections that had just, I'm talking, you're supposed to be talking. Is that why you're giving me the
Take it.
look?
You got
I'm
it.
sorry, Ms. Daniels.
You got it. So as I mentioned, one of the feature stories in this newsletter is about the partnerships with our Transition Center students and many of our Elmhurst businesses, where our Transition Center students are employed by some of the businesses in the area. And it's one of the opportunities that gives them those lifelong skills to continue with success once they leave the Bridges Transition Center. And this, I'm slightly biased. I like all of the videos that we do, but I think this video may be my absolute favorite. So we're going to play you a little snippet of it tonight, but I really encourage you. We're going to link the full one in the board highlights tonight, and I also encourage you to either watch it by going there or to our YouTube channel. It's a tremendous story.
At Brew Point, I label the bags depending on what kind of coffee is supposed to be in there, to put the roast date on the back, fill the bags, weigh them to make sure they're 5 pounds, seal them via the heat sealer, and then just keep doing that.
So students who are attending our transition program really have a desire to want to get out and work. That is probably one of their biggest goals that they and their family have, is the opportunity to find employment or volunteering that meets both their needs and interests. As a team, We really work hard to identify what a student's strengths are, their preferences, interests, needs, and then look into our community to find out what are those community partners that might fit those abilities, as well as opportunities that our students may already say, hey, I want to work at this business.
We have been with the transition program for 9 years, which is a wild amount of time. There's a lot of care that's taken from the very beginning of a coffee farmer all the way to brewing the coffee and giving it to the customer. But one thing that isn't seen very often is not only just the coffee roasting side, it is the transport and the packaging that takes place in between. And that is what the students help us do. They specifically help us with weighing out and packaging our coffee to get to our customers.
I was nervous using the heat sealer because I didn't want to accidentally burn my fingers. It's easier to do now because I've had my job coach give me strategies to make it easier and practice so I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, so as I said, that's just a snippet, because it's a great story.
Well, very good, and congratulations again to you and your team, Tanya, for the the multiple awards that you guys won. Well deserved. Board communication, anything from board members? I just want to make sure that you all know, because I think some of you know, the III conference is coming up in November, and yours truly will be presenting in partnership with members of the IASB, really talking about our district and how we have used data to monitor student growth and progress, and really swing and change that trajectory of student attainment and growth. That's one aspect of it. And the other is really talking about the, I think, quality characteristics, dispositions of the board and district team or superintendent relationship, and how that impacts the efforts of a school district. So that'll be out in November. You don't have to show up. I can give you the notes if you'd like. I think it's geared towards board members. I'm just kidding. Any other board communications? No. Okay. Then we have upcoming meetings. August 18th, 2026, we have a Board of Education meeting at 7 p.m. here in District 205 Center, room 215, 16, and 17. And that will be right after school starts on the 13th. So good luck with that. And we are at 6:37, and this meeting is adjourned.